Yep. So here we are. First of all, I extend a warm welcome to Aaron Lockett. Thankful I am and the entire organization, the Sports Rush. We are really glad to have someone of his experience today with us, a wide receiver and a return specialist who actually is fantastic when it comes to track and field as well. Set quite a few record for Kansas State University also. We'll jump on to the NFL stuff and the CFL stuff later. But first of all, Aaron, welcome to the show. And we'll start right away with how the Kansas State thing happened, your track and field record, and how football happened eventually.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me. Obviously, Kansas State was close to home. Had an older brother that played at Kansas State, and for me, it was an opportunity to go to a similar college I was very familiar with. Football was second nature, but track was my first love. Been running track for a very long time, so Kansas State was fortunate enough to allow me to do both football and track. And so, yes, I did have opportunity to set some records at Kansas State. Didn't really run outdoor track; it was mainly indoor track, but for the most part, got a chance to showcase my speed while in college. So, very appreciative of that.
Nice. I mean, for people like us, and I don't know, for a number of people around the world, doing good in one part of the sport is good enough, something that we appreciate and boast among our friends. For someone like you who has done so much in so many fields, it's first of all a great honor for me to have you here. And then I just want to know the psyche behind a person like you, a young Aaron Lockett, when he jumped into the college. What forced you, or what was in the back of your mind to make your career in this particular field?
Yeah, for me, it was just I had God given talent, right? And so I wanted to make life a little bit easier. So I did with the talent I had and just put the hard work around it. Fortunate enough for me, I come from an athletic family. Father played professional basketball, brother played professional football, and so I kind of knew what the expectations were and what it took to be successful. And then the hard work kicks in, and just you need a little bit of luck along the journey as well, right? Luckily for me, I didn't have a lot of injuries, so I was able to play almost every single game, if not every game, in college. And so as long as you're on the field, you got a chance to really make a difference. But for me, it was just about being around. I was fortunate to have good teammates. We transitioned to Kansas State. They had a lot of good players. We ended up being number one in the nation during my freshman year. And so just being surrounded around talent and knowing what it feels like to be great, it pushed me to the end to be successful.
Fantastic. And I mean, I was coming to the legacy part. You're from a truly athletic family, and Tyler is still active in the league, doing well. So does he
Yes.
listen to your advice, or is he something who just ignores whatever uncle says?
He'll listen every now and then. Tyler has done a lot more than my brother and I. And so we actually just, give him advice where needed, right? Outside of that, he's a professional. He's a vet. He understands what it takes to be successful. What he's done in his career is remarkable and still going. So he's continued to build his legacy. I'm excited for his year here in Tennessee. I think it's going to be a great transition for him. Hitting year 11 for everybody that's ever played in the NFL or put on an NFL helmet is almost unheard of, right? It is hard to do. And so for him, especially as a quote unquote slot receiver return guy, he's definitely made his mark in the NFL, and just excited to see what this year has for him.
Right. And I mean, for you personally, and in the beginning, balancing the things between being a return specialist and a wide receiver, how did that happen? And why did you make that conscious choice of, sort of pursuing both the positions together? And because at this point of time, we see Travis Hunter making a lot of
Right.
news around the world because he's someone who can play both the sides of the ball. So do you, I mean, advocate for a player doing that? Because we have seen a lot of experts who still feel he cannot be as good as he was in college, especially in the NFL on both sides of the ball. So your personal experience and your thoughts about Travis opting to play on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think it can be done. To what level and how much satisfaction yet to be seen, right? But I remember Charles Woodson did, right? I played with a guy named Terrence Newman. Terrence Newman did it. And so it's been done before, right? Deion Sanders did it in the NFL. And so while it's not the norm, you do have people that have exceptional talent, right? As long as you got the height, weight, athletic ability, speed, and endurance, why not, right? So obviously there's going to be challenges, right? Just because if you're taking your time away from one craft, it's hard to manage that craft, right? And so playing offense and defense and trying to learn both sides of the ball, you're not going to be as effective as you could be on one side or the other, but it doesn't mean you can't be effective overall. For me, the way I think about it is whether you're a running back and a return special, whatever it is, the more you can do on the field, the more value you have to that club, right? And so you've got to figure out what you can put in front of them to make you more attractive as a player. And so for me, natural instincts as a returner, the ability to run and hit the hole was something I was able to do. And then being a receiver was something that came natural. And so, yes, I had the opportunity to do both. And once again, the more valuable you become, the more opportunity you have to play longer in your career.
Makes sense. And as long as we are talking about the people who have just now ventured into the NFL, from the college arena, now you see a drastic difference between the current college players and let's say a players who were there in the college and who transitioned to the NFL a few years before is NIL. And the kind of impact it has had on players now, even college players are having publicists. They are having they are buying houses, they are buying Maybachs and everything. So what difference you feel the NIL has brought into the game, and do you feel it is it something which can maybe send the youngsters on a track where they might end up jeopardizing their own longevity and love for the game, or do you feel it has added positively to the athletes who are now venturing into the NFL?
I think it depends on the individual. I think overall, I think it's a positive thing. I think it's just accelerated the opportunity for athletes to get what they deserve, right? And so you're not going to have a ton of athletes make it to the NFL just because the numbers don't work out, right? But that doesn't mean they're not good players, doesn't mean they're not good people. So why not give them the benefit of making people enjoy sports, right? Which is what they're doing in college. And so if you can come out of college with a couple of $100,000 in the bank and maybe some investments, you at least can go live a positive life, right? And so instead of being a really, really good college player and then not getting drafted to the professional ranks and trying to figure out, did I do all of that for nothing, right? Outside of personal gain. And so, yeah, the financial benefit is something that I can see continuing, and I'm glad that it's happening, especially in women's sports, right? And so as you start looking at quote unquote the WNBA, you talk about the first pick or second pick of the draft, right? If you talk about just a on-court contract, right? You're talking about $79,000 or so, but you got some NIL clients, making a couple of $100,000. So why not stay in college, right? Unless your love is just to turn around and play professional now. You just got to weigh the options, right? As I said, every situation is different. Some people take care of family. Some people just have themselves. It just depends on what your personal preference is, but at least the opportunity is there to make an educated decision moving forward.
Absolutely. And I mean, we have covered a lot of stuff where n number of athletes, especially who have made quite a career in field of football, they have ended up losing all of their money and have gone bankrupt even after having substantial contracts. One injury, or even after retiring and playing in the NFL for 10, 12 years, they have lost everything by making bad investments and everything. So what your advice would be, especially to the young athletes who can splurge their money on stupid stuff? So how to keep themselves on the right on the right path, invest smartly, and what should they do with their money, especially when they are not as financially literate, because all their life they have been focused on pursuing a dream, which there's nothing wrong with it, but at a point of time they do reach a point where there are a lot of vultures trying to get a part of that wealth, and they end up losing all of it, if not a major chunk out of it. So your advice and your experience in that particular field.
Yeah, for me, it's just, while I'm not a financial advisor, it's one of those things where surround yourself around somebody that has the expertise, right? Obviously get everything that you need, right, in order to be successful in life. And so there's some things that you want, maybe you get it all, maybe you don't. But as far as investments, I mean, once again, put yourself around people that really know what to do with the money. Obviously, I'm always an advocate of enjoying your money as well. That's the only way that you continue to have the motivation to move forward, right? So yes, save, but enjoy, but find that balance, right? And I think that comes on every individual, right? And so, like I said, people come from different backgrounds. So depending upon if they're trying to make up from things they didn't have when they were younger, if they're trying to get ahead, whatever the situation is, right? This money won't last forever, right? And so make sure that you put a nest egg aside so you can have something to start your life with. But in the meantime, like I said, it's great that they're getting an opportunity to make money. Just continue to surround yourself around somebody that can give you some, decent advice.
Right. And we've talked a lot about money. Let's improvise and have a fun segment into it. Your favorite memory from the college part, from your college career, one memory that still persists in your head and sometimes you even dream about or try to relive that.
Probably the biggest moment for me was, it was probably my freshman year, just catching my first touchdown in college football. I mean, I think you always think about making that transition. What does it feel like to play in college coming from high school? Same. What does it feel like to play pro coming from college? when you've actually made that impact on that stage and you've made a successful play and you're getting kudos and congratulations for it, I think that is probably that moment where you realize that you can play at that level. And so that's always a question that most athletes have in their mind, whether it's the nerves, the jitters, the butterflies, whatever you call them. Once you satisfy that and you get that play successful, I think it gives you confidence moving forward.
Right. And if I'm not wrong, you've had the experience of playing under Bill Snyder.
I did. I
Yes.
did.
So your experience with him, and what I mean, your favorite coach. You played across in college as well as in NFL and
Yeah.
CFL. So is Snyder your favorite coach, or is there
By
someone
far.
you also
Yep.
know about?
Snyder's my guy. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that just understands how to motivate young men, right? And so I always think that, you know, while coaches knows the X's and O's, you've got some that just know how to motivate young men and how to get the best out of whatever they have to bring to the table. And so Coach Snyder was one of those guys. I think one of the biggest characteristics he had is he listened, right? While he was demanding and had his way of doing things, he also listened. And so while he may not say, yep, I'm going to do that, somehow he would incorporate that into his strategy moving forward. And so he heard you when you spoke up. And so for me, I think it's just a pivotal time in young men's careers when they're 18 to 22. You know, if they find somebody that's influential in their life that can help them find success, they end up being either a mentor or somebody they can lean on. And so Coach Snyder was that for many of us, right? Just because we saw him on a daily basis and he continued to pour into us as young men. And so I'll forever be grateful for Coach Snyder on and off the field, right? He's always been a guy that picks up the phone, always been straightforward, always put me in the best situation possible. And I will always have him as one of my top coaches.
Fantastic. And I mean, having someone, a mentor like him in your life, that really pushes you to just achieve more. And as far as coaches are concerned, it's personally, I mean, I feel they aren't at a point of time as respected, or I would say they aren't really given the kind of credit for the team's success. Whenever we talk about a team winning, for example, whenever Kansas City wins, it's Patrick Mahomes winning. Whenever Steelers win, it's it's not Mike Tomlin winning, but it's the quarterback winning. So you feel with such coaches like Tomlin, coaches like Bill Belichick, while he was active in the NFL, you feel there is a sense of putting the blame onto them when things don't go right. Is there still around?
Well, I mean, it's the nature of the position, right? I mean, as you lead, you know, this group of men, you're responsible for the good and the bad, right? And so while Mike T and Andy may not get the front end love, they do from the coaching perspective, right? I think coaches understand how hard it is to win championships, right? And have to take a transition from a team from A to Z. And so I think for the coaches, they're numb to that, right? They're numb to what everybody thinks about them. All they want to do is turn the franchise around or keep it going in the right direction. And so while you know, the Patrick Mahomes or the quarterbacks of the world may get a lot of the glory, those quarterbacks know the coaches are right there with them, right? And so I think if you see a team win a championship or get far in the playoffs, I don't think you see that coach get immediately fired, right? So there's some benefits to that, right? On the flip side, you probably see extensions. And so I think it's recognized from the top down, the job that the coaches are doing. The media may not recognize them because the coaches may not be as loving to the media and giving them all of the noise that they want to hear. And maybe the players will, but the coaches obviously have a strong position within the organization.
Right. I mean, as far as, I just want to go back to the family again. Mm-hmm. Has Tyler surprised you to an extent? I mean, the kind of success he has achieved in such a little amount of time, has he surprised you, or did you always know he had that X factor in him, that he was going to do well at the big stage?
75% of me knew he could do what he's doing, right? Tyler's extremely talented. He's been talented from a very young age, right? The 25% is always the unknown, and that's what he's already satisfied as well. But if you go back and look at Tyler, and I'm not talking about Pop Warner middle school and high school, but if you pull on his college career, it's amazing, right? If you go through and look at the numbers that he put down and really put it into perspective, it's what you would call timeless. Regardless of what era of football you're looking at, his numbers would resonate with anybody that loves the game of football. And so when you talk about a two-time special teams player of the year, you talk about 1,400 yards your last year, you talk about 219 yards in a game against Oklahoma, right? And you talk about under 20-degree weather, 200 yards and a half. Those things are unheard of, right? And if you look at that across the board, even guys getting drafted today hasn't had those type of moments in their career, right? And so for Tyler, It's always been there. It's just a matter of the world being able to see it, right? Everybody doesn't watch Big 12 football. Everybody didn't watch Kansas State. And so he got to see that exposure when he went to Seattle. And so then the world got to see what he was really about. And so for Tyler, it's just a matter of continuing to put good stuff on tape, right? Keep doing what you do naturally. But he is a professional, right? He's a vet at the end of the day. And so his knowledge, understanding, and love for the game will continue to transition to good years in football.
Absolutely. And always, I mean, whenever I'm reading about the greats of the game or writing about them, one thing has been constant: the kind of pay cuts they have taken. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, they have always, I mean, they had the chances to go and earn a bigger paycheck, but to have a better team around them and to have more Super Bowl rings, they opted to have those kind of contracts where they settled for a few less dollars, let's say. So is that something you feel is the right way to go, and you'll advocate for that, or that all goes, I mean, to a secondary space, and you feel looking out for better contracts is number one priority, and then the other things can come into the fold?
I think it depends on the individual, right? I think if you earn the money and you have the opportunity to get it, take it, right? But if you have a different strategy that you think can help the team, that falls within that individual. But I also think it's later on in your career, right? I think ultimately at the front end, you've worked hard, you've earned that money. I mean, if you look at a Brock Purdy, right? Brock Purdy, right? Last pick of the draft, right? He's outplayed his contract within the first 2 years, right? But he had to wait in order to get paid. And so why wouldn't he take his full money, right? He earned it, and then it's up to the organization to put the right people around you, right? And so for him and others in that situation, these contracts don't come often, right? And to play at the level that he and many others have played, it's hard in the NFL, right? It's the best of the best, right? You talk about all the intangibles that can kick in relative to having injuries or just being outplayed or just not having a good year of football. Whatever it is can happen. So when you do the things that you need to do in order to get a contract extension or you get that big payday, yeah, you take your payday. Right. That's just my preference.
Absolutely. I mean, and you talked about Brock. An injury in the first couple of years or the first year when he was doing well and he had a minuscule amount of money, he was still living with a roommate. A career-ending injury at that point of time, no matter how talented he is, that really puts an end to his entire life earnings. So that's something. That's why your point makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have to secure your future as well while thinking about what you want to do with a very good team. So point taken, definitely. And while talking about that transition from college to the NFL, personally, what major difference you thought was there while you went from college to the bigger leagues? Where do you feel the major difference lies, or what really hits you, where you feel really shook as a youngster?
Yeah, I think everybody's dream, right? The majority of guys that are playing is always to see if you can get to the pinnacle, right? Which is the NFL. And so if there's an opportunity to get drafted or to even get a chance to put a helmet on and see if you compete, I think every guy would take that opportunity. For me, what is the biggest transition? Is two things. It's speed, right? The size of guys and how fast they move around and at what level they can play. And then it's consistency, right? Can you go out there and do it consistently day in and day out? I mean, that's what they're asking for at that level to be a professional, right? Because if they wanted a 6'1", 215-pound Aaron Lockett, they can go find him, right? He's out there. It's that many guys that want to play football, right? But do you have something special about you? What's that it factor that you bring to the table to make a team fall in love with you? And then can you show that over and over and over and over again? And that's the challenge of being a professional. And when you can, you become the top of the top, right? And so it's no different than watching basketball, right? When you see Steph Curry shoot the ball, we feel like it's going in. Whether it is or not, every time he shoots the ball, it feels like it's going in. That's a professional because he's done it consistently for so many times, right? And so I think as you watch football, it's the same thing, right? This year, right? You watch Barkley for the Eagles. You knew eventually he was going to pop a 45-yarder because that's just what he's been doing all year, right? It's his year. He's in that moment. He's that talented. And so because of that, I think that's the challenge for every rookie or every young player that comes into the National Football League. Can you get to that moment where you become guaranteed to do what people expect you to do?
Right. And I mean, as far as this year's draft class is concerned, there have been a lot of chatter around the kind of talent coming in, and especially when they have a lot of money in the bag already. I mean, most of them, especially the ones who got to the NFL teams in the top positions in the draft. So as far as schedule is concerned, he is someone who ended up bringing a lot of viewership because people wanted to see when he'll go. And I mean, there were a lot of my friends who watched the draft to the third day, especially because they wanted to see where schedule goes. So there's been a lot of chatter around him. What is your personal position on what kind of player he is? Does he have the ability? Because now we are hearing reports that he might very well be the fourth string quarterback on the Cleveland Browns. Flacco is doing pretty well. Some of the other boys are also doing well. And the experts opine he's not getting the kind of practices which we all thought he will, which clearly suggests he might be the fourth string quarterback for the team. So you feel that's the right path for him, or has he messed up somewhere in the middle?
No, I think he's okay. I think he can flat out play though, right? I mean, the games that I've watched, the times that I got to see him in his pro days, he's a baller. Right? Like he does what's expected to be done, right? He can throw the rock. It looks like he motivates his teammates. Obviously, he's got the bloodlines, right? So I can't speak to why he didn't get drafted where he was expected to go, but I can speak to the fact of when I've watched him, he looks like a competitor. I think he's going to be fine, right? I think he just needs his moment, like every other rookie that's coming into the league, right? Regardless of where you got drafted, everybody got to step on that field and has to show up, right? And so he'll get his moment just like everybody else. And I expect him to do well. And I think this would be a conversation that would die off pretty soon. At the end of the day, he'll end up, starting some games and playing well, and he'll end up having a good NFL career, right? I think it's just a conversation now because it's the newest information. But, training camp is a grind, right? Once you get in the training camp and you start to see people come in and day out, you got to string some good days together. That's what I'm talking about, that consistency that kicks in. And so he's going to have a chance like everybody else to go in there and make his mark. And I just think he has the talent. So I'm excited to watch him along with a lot of other rookies go out there and make that transition.
Right. And I mean, I completely agree with the points you made. We also had we had the chance of having a chat with a couple of people who are very closely involved with all recruiting and the process before the draft. A lot of them were of the opinion that all the shenanigans, showing off the watch and everything of that sort, and he didn't really have a great interview in the beginning while he was while the recruiters were looking out for him. So reports were started to flow in right from the beginning that he might not have a lot of takers in the draft, but we were still hopeful. So you feel those little moments where you are just trying to show off a little bit. Do they hamper you in the longer game?
No, not necessarily. I think every individual is different. I mean, I think if the talent is there and teams buy into it, then they get drafted, right? I think if he'd have been drafted in the top 5, this wouldn't be a conversation. It wouldn't have changed the way he approached it, right? So I just think that the end result is now known, and they can go back and look in hindsight and say, ooh, was that a mistake? Did that work, right? I think at the end of the day, you just have to be yourself, right? Do what you do. His dad got swag, right? His dad did it, and so it worked out for him. So why would you be any different, right? That's that just be the nature of who he is to whatever extent. But there's a ton of guys that's gone through the draft period their own way, right? And so while it's hurt some, it's helped some. At the end of the day, you need an alpha coming into that locker room, right? And so being the nice guy and being sensitive and all of that may sound good to society. It stinks in the locker room, right? So they want an alpha to come in and own that, right? And so that's what they're looking for.
Absolutely. And your point made me think about one of the recruits to whom I had a chance to chat with. He said people use confidence and cockiness interchangeably a lot.
Exactly.
If they see you doing well after you have shown off your watch, then they'll say you are very confident. And if you fail, then say, he's cocky. He just have those shenanigans to show off, doesn't really have that kind of talent. And we all know at the pro level, at that level, you can't really succeed all the time. You'll have your moments. You'll have chances where not everything will pan out. And amongst the youngsters who went through in this year's draft, which player do you have your bet on? You feel is really going to do well in the time to come and might surprise a lot of the fans?
It's not a player in particular. I'm more excited about the wide receiver group, right? Obviously, just because, we had LaJohntay Wessler, and so I watched the wide receiver group pretty detailed, right? And so, when I talk about, the combine guys, right, when I was watching LaJohntay, you got a chance to see everybody else, right? And so just excited to see all of that talent, right? Because I was a wide receiver and how that played, right? And so, even guys that weren't at the combine, right? Once again, you look at like for us, like a Jeremiah Hunter, right? Guys that really played well in all-star games, guys that had a good college career, how they transition, right? When their moment comes as well. And so just because we had 2 wide receivers this year, we paid a lot of attention to the wide receiver group. And so that transition is not always easy. especially getting into the league. And I think what they'll find out is the game moves fast, right? The expectations are high, and there's a lot of talented players in the NFL, right? And so you find your niche, bring something to the table, and go get what's yours.
Right. And because I always wanted to ask you this, your top 5 wide receivers in the NFL of all time, in no particular order. You can just go on.
Of all time?
Of all
Oh,
time.
wow. So definitely a Randy Moss fan. Rest in peace, Terry Glenn fan. There was a guy that was one of my all-time favorites, Webster Slaughter, that played for the Cleveland Browns back in the day. I thought Webster was legit. For me, T.O., because I was around T.O. At the beginning of my NFL career, and I got a chance to see the work he put in and what he looks like. So I respect that more than anything. And then, I'm also a Joey Galloway fan, right? Just because I try to find somebody that I can idolize, on the field and what I could do. So Joey could run. He wasn't a 6-foot guy, and he made plays. And so while my 5 may not be able to compete with other people's 5, there was ones that had influence on me.
That makes sense. And while you were transitioning into an NFL, when you had that dream of becoming an NFL wide receiver, which one out of these 5 or anyone of the wide receivers did you idealize and wanted your game to be like him?
Joey Galloway, right? Joey, just because he was a 4-2 guy, right? Joey can, take the top off the defense. I thought it was so cool he wore 84. So actually, when I left the NFL, went to Canada, I wore 84, right? It's just one of those things, right? But then in high school, I wore 21 because Deion wore 21, right? So you got to have somebody to look up to. I think it's always important to see somebody that you find similarities in and see kind of how they become successful. You find out a way to implement that into your game. I think that happens all day, every day, right? And so for me, it would have been Joey Galloway by far.
Sounds good. And just a light question in there between, I would like to slide in. A few of the young players really had that. They're really giving it a thought what kind of number they want to have on their backs, because we've had a lot of discussion around some numbers being just rookie numbers, 63, 71, nobody really cares about. So
Right.
basically, what was your favorite number? And do you really give it a thought behind what number you really wanted to choose?
Always, yes. I think in the league, before a couple of years ago, you could only wear 80s, right? And so you had to wear 80s back in the day when you first got in the league. And if you didn't have an 80 number as a wide receiver, you probably wasn't going to be on the team very long. But then eventually they switched it up to where you got guys starting to wear single digits, et cetera. And so, I think the number brings a little bit of moxie to your game, right? And so I'm sorry, I just don't look as good in 77 as I would in 21. Like it's just numbers for real. And so guys are always interested to see what numbers they have an opportunity to get or can get. And I think from there it just kind of goes into their playing mode a little bit. It puts on that cape when they go on that field. Like, okay, I got my number, I'm ready to go. Let's go get this. And that's just how it works.
Right. And I've heard from quite a few of the players I've had the luxury to chat with. They always mention a few stories about locker room where they either got pranked or were the pranksters in the room. So do you have one of those stories you'd like to share with us?
Oh, no, I don't have a prankster in the locker room joke, but I do have that rookie bill that I had to pay. So yeah, as a rookie, you end up taking your position out for dinner and they leave you with that bill. So that is a real thing. There's always things they do to initiate youngsters into it, whether it's college, even high school, right? Or sometimes professionals. And so, it sucks sometimes. I mean, we all had to carry pads and helmets at one time and point. Maybe not a long time, but yeah, you didn't want to buck the system or you didn't want to get taped to the goalpost. It's one of those things.
Right. All right. I mean, these stories sound fantastic. And I really want to know a little bit more about the kind of things you are involved after, you have stepped away from the game, what
Right.
kind of things you are moving towards, and what are the arenas where you feel there is a lot of exploration even for other former players to be done?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, so we run Next Page Sports. And so I am the founder and owner of Next Page Sports, got a wonderful team that assists with me. So we do representation for football and women's basketball. And so for us, obviously, it's important for us to be around the game, right? The next generation, and how we can help these young individuals transition to the professional ranks. And so while we do NIL and marketing as well, just being part of the landscape with the experience we have as a team, I think has been beneficial. We found our success, we found our niche and our lane, and we'll continue to grow in that space. And so we'll champion anything that we do with the right clients to make sure that we can get them in the right positions to be successful. Outside of that, you look at other athletes and what their natural transition would be. Most of it would be coaching, right? Potentially getting some type of personnel jobs within the NFL or their professional ranks, whether it's scouting, whether it's, wanting to become a GM, whatever it is. I think naturally take on your God-given experience and extrapolate that into a profession, right? And so you don't have to start from ground zero. And so as a player, we have so much knowledge from being in the locker room. I think it's beneficial for us to come in and immediately jump into a position in the sports industry and add value today. And so I think because of that, you'll see a lot of athletes stay in the sports world. For those that don't and get into a field that they feel and love, I think, the ability to handle constructive criticism, being on time, dealing with hardcore pressure situations will always benefit them as well. And so based on that, I think it's great to be an athlete. And I think you'll see those tools and intangibles that you need to be successful later on in life come from most athletes initially.
Right. And I mean, as soon as we start talking about athletes who have done incredibly well after stepping away from the game, two names always come to my mind: Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Peyton established his Omaha Productions. I mean, he's on the verge of becoming a billionaire, and that'll happen quite soon. And we have Tom Brady, who has found 199 Productions. He's doing a million things along with investments and everything. So have you been following the post-retirement journey of these two players? And what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, not so much those two in general, but think about the other ones, though. Think about the Brandon Marshalls who started House of Athlete. Think about the Ryan Clarks now who's on the pivot, right? Who's actually a commentator, right? There's a ton of people that would be in my circle, right? Guys that I would have followed, right, throughout my career that's transitioned. I even look at my brother, right? He's a venture capitalist, right? And so guys that we're associated with or I have familiarity with, watching how they work. Look at Antoine Randall, right? He's an assistant head coach of Chicago Bears. I mean, these are just guys that, like I said, came out around the same time that I did. And so those are guys that I would look and see. And so obviously the quarterbacks get the glory because they get all the exposure. But what about the other people that's made the transition that didn't get quite that same exposure, right? I think that should be championed and loved on just as much as everybody else. And the things that they're doing is incredible. Keyshawn Johnson. I mean, all of them, right? They found themselves on TV and given the commentary that fans love to hear. Because, hold on, you're pausing on me. Hold on real quick. Okay. Bad here and the power cut out and cut back on.
Yeah, it's
you'll have to do some editing in there. There you go. Okay. Hopefully it's pausing a little bit so we can try to hurry up and finish up so you don't have to mess it up too much.
Yeah, I mean, no problems at all. And I was anyways, coming to the conclusion of this fantastic chat that we had. But before we do that, just a couple more questions I have to put your way. Among the current lot of wide receivers, where do you see the most amount of promise? And where do you feel this particular player is not really putting out the kind of performances, what you really expect from him?
Well, I mean, when you look at the NFL now, I mean, obviously, that young man Jordan Addison in Minnesota is amazing, right? Like just the level of play that he had at USC and how his transition. Obviously, I watched him just because of knowing Keenan McCardell, the receiver coach, and I know how much of a talent he is. So excited to see how he had transitioned some of the players. And yeah, Jordan, I think, is just one of those guys that's really, really putting his best foot forward. Don't know him personally, but really respect his game and what he can do on the field. So excited to see, how his career progresses just from a receiver standpoint, right? When you're thinking about receivers, I'm excited to see Keon Coleman at Buffalo, right? So had a chance to see Keon in the pre-draft process at one of the training facilities, and always thought he was a super talent, right? Really good basketball player. So excited to see him around Josh Allen and what he's done as well. The way he throws the ball. I'm excited to see him become a number one receiver. Just once again, being a fan of the game and seeing how some of these guys come in and seeing them make that transition. When you talk about guys not really doing what's expected, that's more to me of a media thing. I think some guys need more time than others, right? And based on the situation, right? You may get into a situation where you don't get a chance to play immediately, and then you get a chance to shine and you do your thing when your time comes. For that, I think you'll see all of these guys come around in some capacity. NFL doesn't make a ton of mistakes when they do the draft process, right? There's a lot of people that's part of that decision, right? And so they do a lot of research, a lot of background. They understand analytics, data analysis, and then they just look at film, right? And so I trust their professional viewpoint, and they figure out some way and capacity this individual can come in and help us. So I think you'll see most guys have at least a glimpse of what they can do at the pro level.
And now you see the league going international. You see a lot more games now being played in the different parts of the world. And when the LA Olympic Games are being expected, flag football is being introduced into that arena as well. So are you in favor of that? And do you feel that's the right way to promote the sport in the parts of the world, especially where football is not watched in the way as it is in the US?
Yeah, I don't know if American football will ever be football when you talk about internationally, right? It's not the soccer game of the world, but I think it's always good for exposure, right? You've got to continue to grow whatever you do, right? And so I think, for American football, if it's, there's so many other nationalities playing today, right? And so when you think about, if you think about all the Nigerians that's playing in the NFL right now, right? Being able to go back and open up camps and build schools and everything that they're doing, I think the NFLPA does an excellent job of putting, resources in place so guys can go back and do things back in their home countries. So I think it should grow. I think it should be part of the Olympics. I think everybody wants to have that experience, right? It's cool to play professional, but the Olympics by far is a check mark in your life. And so why not make it part of a sport that more can get involved into?
While Mahomes says he would rather leave that to some of the younger guys in the room. So you feel that's the right way to go for him? Well, we all wanted to see him donning the US jersey and playing in the LA games.
Yeah, no different than USA basketball, right? So you had the dream team, and then most of the time you get the college guys to go out there. And so you trust the college guys to go out there and handle business. And if they're not, then maybe there's a couple of guys that get involved. But I don't know if I would jeopardize my professional career, right, to go out there for the Olympic medal. I worked too hard to get to that position. But, some guys think differently. And so once again, it becomes an individual preference based on if they want to be part of the Olympics or not.
Absolutely. And I mean, this one question I really wanted to ask, and I want this questions to come across a lot of more former and current NFL players. Do you feel like the WNBA, the kind of way it has been, the league has seen a lot of success in the recent past with a lot of superstars coming out. You feel NFL has the capability to churn out a league like that and centered around women athletes? You feel that's something which is a possibility going forward?
To be determined. I think women's sports in general is growing. I think they're getting popularity. I think they're extremely skilled. Has as much, if not more, ambition than some of the guys, and they got true skills, right? And so if you sit down and really watch them train, they've got it, right? And so I would see more sports coming around for women, whether it's football or not, to be determined. But I think there's always going to be demand for good sports, and so I think eventually it will grow to some level to whether it's a professional flag league or not, whatever it is, or maybe it's professional tackle for women, I think there'll be an audience for it.
Right. And final question of the day, Aaron. It's been a fantastic chat till now, I'll say without a doubt. And my question is, with the way NFL is progressing at this point of time, a lot of new talent coming in, what is that one advice you want all the wide receivers, all the new quarterbacks to hear from a veteran, from someone like you, so that they are on the right path and as their career progresses, they do not deviate from the path that they are on?
Man, be yourself, show up, learn the playbook, and when it's your time, show up. I mean, it's that simple, right? It's not really a complex recipe to being successful. It's just when your number's called, you got to do what you're expected to do, right? And so just work your butt off, listen, and take advantage of every opportunity. That's it. It's pretty simple. Sounds easier than it is, right? Don't let me make it sound like it's not hard, but it's not a hard recipe, but it's hard to execute.
Right. Just finally, before I sign off, one little question, because we did that yesterday. Myles Garrett has been missing OTAs, and he was spotted in Japan. So what is your opinion on OTAs? I mean, of course, they are not a mandatory thing. So as someone who's being visioned as a leader and visioned as someone who can lead the team, him missing OTs, does that send a wrong message to the locker room and to the fan base?
Oh no, I'm not for me. I mean, like I said, once again, depends on the team. If it's a young team, veteran team, guys are going to miss. This is their only off season right before the season starts, and so guys are going to do what they need to do. But they're professional; they'll show up and be ready when the time comes. So I don't think it's a big thing.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron, and glad you took the time out of